anxiety, intense tantrums, OCD, freaking out when you go out into the world, fear of water. What will cause all of these things and more in a little 5-year-old? We'll say his name is Jonah. We're changing all of this to protect the child's identity. But the parents of Jonah came to see me because he was having intense social anxiety where he would just freak out when he would be in the world, when he would see certain things happening. He was intensely fearful of water. So every time the family wanted to take him to the beach, he would just freak out as these waves would come in. Highly anxious child who would also have these epic tantrums and just meltdowns. And 5-year-olds, typically 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, yeah, tantrums. 5-year-olds, not so much, right? So tantrums, anxiety, also just intensely getting upset at dad over nothing. And every little thing would just kind of get under his skin. What would cause all of this to happen? Now, some of you, based on what you've heard me talk about before with sensory processing, you're like, oh, social anxiety, he gets freaked out in the world. This is social sensory processing. It is not. In this case, it was not. This kid was also having some abdominal pain. So every time he would eat sugar, he would get abdominal pain, and it was happening approximately twice per week. So we were like, well, is it the gut? Is it not? Except it wasn't the gut. There was actually nothing going on with his gut. So what was it? What was going on with this kid that would cause him to have these meltdowns and anxiety and all of these things? Well, there was one thing that kind of tipped me off to this. And that was that despite having a really good night's rest, Jonah would wake up uber crabby in the mornings. And during the course of the day, he'd be okay. And then all of a sudden, in the late afternoons is when he was just kind of losing his mind. So mom literally was like staging her day to be like, okay, this is the hour of time or 2 or 3 hours of time that we're kind of good and we can go do stuff. And the rest of the time, he was just a hot mess. So she would just have him at home, kind of quiet, everything stable, no one bother him. The gut doesn't change in its activity over time. Sensory processing disorders don't change over time. The hormones, especially the adrenal hormones, change over time, right? Adrenal glands wake us up in the morning, so big burst, except when they don't work, what happens? We don't get that burst, so we're just super crabby, tired, irritable. They finally get going, so during the course of the day, we're actually doing okay, and then bam, 2 to 4 p.m., drop in cortisol, voila, crabbiness. So in this case, what I actually told mom is I think he actually has a little bit of a hormonal imbalance. Now, it wasn't just his adrenals, because there was another element. So children who just have adrenal issues, they typically have just a baseline crabbiness where they're just rigid and they're kind of reactive, but it's kind of static in that sense. And it does change over time. What we don't get with the adrenal glands is an element of OCD. So in the case of Jonah, when I really talked to the mom, I was just like, so what happens around the water? And she's like, yeah, he talks about the water is scary, and then he just keeps talking about it like he goes into a loop. This is something that's very common. Individuals that have thyroid imbalances have a weird state of OCD, and the way that OCD shows up is through this perseveration. It's a broken record. The mind just will not stop. And the same thought, boop, 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 just keeps landing, and it just never ends. Hence why these individuals, these kids, go into tantrums. What is a tantrum? The tantrum is a child had something unexpected happen or didn't get what they want, so they become upset about it. But instead of being upset about it for 2 minutes, they're upset about it for 30 minutes. Why? Because 30 minutes later, they're still thinking about the same damn thing that happened that caused them to get upset. Very specific pattern. So in the case of Jonah, what we did is we made a custom blend of plants. Some adrenal support, oat straw, and a few other plants to support the thyroid, and then a tiny bit of fig in this plant called Liffy tree, which kind of rebalanced the nervous system. That was 2% of the total mixture. We gave him a small amount of this, half a teaspoon or less, actually. And what was amazing, and this mom is just like, I can't believe this. 2 weeks later, moods, behaviors gone, to the point where I'm just like, you're kidding me. I know how well the plants work, and when they work this well, I'm like, are you serious? Like, I was for sure thinking like there was something else going on. We still need to treat the gut. We still need to do these things. The mom's like, he's fine. Like, there's nothing else going on. Like, reactions to dad, gone. Fear of the ocean, like, still cautious, but now like they can actually go to the ocean. The kid will actually walk up to the water and be curious about it. He's not going to jump in, but he's not freaking out. Mom could take him out into the world, and he is a sensitive child. So he wasn't running into crowds. This is prior COVID. He wasn't running into crowds, but at the same time, he wasn't overwhelmed by the world. Why? Because that constant cyclical thinking calmed down, and he can actually be present without freaking out. His adrenal glands rebalance, so that baseline state of anxiety, the fight flight, kind of like calm down. Why? Because the nervous system actually paradoxically responds. Adrenal glands activity goes up, sympathetic tone comes down. Tired but wired. You know why they say that? Because when you're wired, your sympathetic nervous system is high. Tired because your adrenal gland activity is low. Flip that around, all of a sudden that baseline anxiety comes down. Part of why I love using the plants is because we can actually target mechanisms in this precise fashion. And the cool thing is plants are so absurdly safe. I mean, like, you can chug an entire bottle of a mixture minus diarrhea and abdominal pain, nothing happens. But in kids especially, because their systems are so responsive and they change so quickly, literally within a week or two, adrenal support, boom, behaviors change. These plants that support the thyroid, you put that into the system, all of a sudden the child adapts within weeks. The most amazing part of all of this is the healing that's possible. The healing that's possible for all kids, for your kid, for your family. There are some adults that are like, I kind of have some of that. There's things you can do about it. There's teas you don't even need to get fancy or to talk to me. Oat straw tea, which you can buy from Mountain Rose Herbs. I have no affiliation with them. You can buy the tea in bulk, $10 a pound. Make a tea out of it, drink it. After a week or two, you may start seeing things change. Lithi tree, Viburnum lantana, you can buy that online. Take literally 0.5 milliliter of that mixture. You may find your system calms down. These types of healing are possible. These things are out there. And I've had thousands of kids now that I've treated for adrenal and thyroid issues over the last 8 years. And the changes keep coming up over and over and over again. We just need to know that these things exist. We need to know that these possibilities are out there. And the more informed you become, and the more informed you help others become, that is how we change this narrative. That's how we make more healing possible for more kids. Please help me get this information out there so we can help all parents know at least that these things are possible. Even if they don't tap into it, that they know it's possible. That is how we make the world a better place. And I'm so thankful to have you as part of this conversation. Thanks for watching. This is Dr. K.